I'm Renee, Richard, host of Roots of Faith. And over the past few weeks, we've been visiting various parishes. And last week, we visited the parish of St. John the Baptist in Zachary and its mission of Our Lady of the Assumption, which is located in Clinton. But today, really, we're going to be just showcasing the brand new church that was dedicated in 2017 here at St. John in Zachary. And because we're talking about churches, I would like to give you a little more background on the different ones that existed for this parish. Again, the Acadians were the first ones to bring Catholicism to this area, and it was in 1780s that they first landed, and a settlement of the Acadians were put at, or stationed, settled at Bayhi, which is about 6 miles from Zachary. That's the earliest record that we know of where a chapel could have existed, but there's no evidence really that one was there that early. Beginning in around 1820s, the late 1820s, there is a deed at the courthouse that indicates the first chapel being built here that we know was a structure that lasted really until about 1870. One of the unusual things about that particular chapel is that although it was not a parish at the time, it was strictly a mission of St. Joseph in Baton Rouge. That chapel was visited by 3 priests that would go on to be bishops, or 2 of them were already bishops, but Antoine Blanc, who was the priest of St. Joseph, visited here. He later became not only the bishop of the Archdiocese of New Orleans, or the Diocese of New Orleans at the time, but he became the first Archbishop of the Diocese of New Orleans. The other 2 that visited were Bishop Rosati, who ends up in St. Louis, and then Bishop de Necraire, another Archbishop for the Diocese of New Orleans. They came here to do confirmations. So not many parishes or early chapels can boast that kind of visits to their communities. Again, this is a mission, and that church has lasted till the 1870s. It was beginning to fall down, so at that point in time, the town of Zachary was moving, the community was moving more towards where Zachary is now, and so another church was constructed in a different location. And that church lasted until the 1920s. Now, along that route, again, this is a mission of St. Joseph. When St. George was established in 1908, the mission of St. John here in Zachary was actually given south of Baton Rouge to St. George. But St. George was founded as a parish that had all these multiple missions, this being one of them. So again, it was a mission of St. George. And as Baton Rouge grew, with Exxon coming in and all the growth in North Baton Rouge, as a parish would be developed, this parish now, as a mission, was handed off to another parish. So St. Anthony, in the 1920s, it became a mission of St. Anthony. And then in the 1940s, we see St. Jared come into existence, and it becomes a mission of St. Jared. And then lastly, the last mission that it was a mission of the last parish established was St. Isidore in Baker. And so 1964, finally, this parish becomes its own ecclesiastical entity. And that just gives you some background since we're talking about all the churches being built. The last church that was built prior to this one was in 1974, making this church that we're going to visit today the 5th one to house the congregation for St. John the Baptist. There are 2 things that I want to talk about before we actually talk about the structure. And the pastor here is Father Jeff Bayhi, that we spoke with last week, and we'll be talking to him this week. And he is lucky enough to have acquired 2 relics that are of extreme importance and sacredness here. Father Jeff spent 7 years working with Saint Mother Teresa, and he was the priest that gave her the anointing of the sick before she died. The cotton ball and the oil, which he anointed her with, is a relic here now at an altar dedicated to her here in this church. So that's one of the special relics that you will find if you visit here in this church. The second one belongs to St. John Paul II, Pope John Paul II. And Father Jeff Bayhi, again, goes to Rome often. He has said Mass with St. Pope John Paul II. And so when they were reinterring the body 5 years after the Pope had died, they found that his blood was actually still fluid. And Father Jeff knew the cardinal there, and he actually gave him some of the blood of St. John Paul II, St. Pope John Paul II. And that is the other relic that is here at this church in the altar for for him. So those are two things outside of the architecture that we'll be talking about today. So join us as we explore the beautiful church of St. John the Baptist in Zachary. I am here with Father Jeff Bayhi, pastor of St. John the Baptist Church here in Zachary, Louisiana. And today we'll be taking a look in detail at the features of this magnificent church here in Zachary. And when you come to the front of it, it's neo-Gothic, if I'm correct, in architecture style. And we talked about it previously in the last show about the architects. And I forget their names, but I want to give them credit.
Ritter Mayer?
Thank you.
Yes.
So when you come out front, though, and as you're approaching the church, they have a beautiful statue of St. John the Baptist in a fountain.
Exactly. He was keeping guard over the old church, and now we put him out to sea.
So is he one of the something you've brought from the old church here?
He was on the outside of the old church.
Okay,
yeah.
so from the old church to the new church was kind of
Sure.
cool. And also then when you are facing the church, you have some crosses that I was very impressed with the size.
On top.
On the exterior.
Yeah,
we
have 5 of them.
5 total, but they're massive in size.
Yes.
You don't realize the size of this building until you read it, or even in here now. And then when you enter into the church, we talked about it last week, but the floor is terrazzo tile, and it was donated by the architects with your insignia that you use for the church of St. John the Baptist.
Parish logo, if you will.
Thank you. Okay. The senior moment. It wasn't coming to me.
Okay, insignia. You sound educated. I sound like I do T-shirts. Okay. All right.
So then, when you do walk into this church, my first impression was I'm walking into a castle. The height is unbelievable, but it dwarfs everything else around it. Yeah. So, how tall? I think you mentioned it.
I think it's 49 feet
tall.
Is the height, with these beautiful
interior
glue lamp beams.
It's beautiful.
But when you look down, you'll see an odd tile with a diamond in it.
I read.
And those represent the nails of the cross. So as you go throughout the church, you're going to see, the 5 wounds of Jesus set out in little different tiles.
Right, because this church is laid out in the form of a cross.
Cruciform, correct.
Cruciform, correct.
Exactly.
And so I think the one for his side is over in the side.
No, it's all in the nave, on the main part.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, in the nave, okay.
Yeah.
Because there's 2 tiles in front of us for his feet, and then you have
one on each
side, and then there's one by the 7th pew for the wound in his.
I didn't count them, but I think you're right.
Okay, but that was one of the fascinating things that you don't know the significance of seeing the tile.
Sure, and as you walk in and you look and you see this beautiful crucifix, that's almost 2 stories high.
Unbelievable.
It's 18. Right at 19 feet high, and then of course you're going to see in back of it the reredos, what we call in layman's language the high altar. Okay, and the high altar is just magnificent. It's a lesson in the Eucharist. You'll see at top the canvas of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. On the left-hand side, you'll see Saint Augustine. On the right-hand side, you'll see St. Athanasius. Those are both made by a French artist, Bayhi, in 1841, one piece of wood. And the reason they're there is because they wrote very definitively about the 3 in 1, the doctrine of the Trinity. Then you come down and you see the small statue of St. Thomas Aquinas on the right and St. Peter Canisius on the left. And they both wrote extensively about the real presence in the Eucharist. And you'll see the tabernacle in the middle, and you got the cherubs, the bread of angels, and the 2 angels on the side of it. And the canvas on the right and the canvas on the left. The canvas on the left is the sacrifice of Abraham, the Old Testament foreshadowing of the Eucharist. And on the right is the bread and wine offered by Melchizedek. And when you come down, and you can't see it at this angle, but it's from the Psalms. They're deers. My soul longs for you, O Lord, like a deer longs for running streams. And you see the deer drinking from the stream. And then the altar of sacrifice, believe it or not, was made by a local person, a parishioner, Dr. Scott Buzzhart, who
Amazing.
took some of the pedestals from the old church and reconfigured them. He does beautiful work. And then in the middle, you see the Last Supper. That was in the original church. And we had it refinished and placed in the altar of sacrifice. So that's kind of your first look, if you will, is what you're going to see. On the left, you're going to see this wooden spire, and it's our baptismal font sitting on top of Carrara marble. And when you go up, you can just open it. And the top slides to the back. And it's a seven-sided
Should-
top. And it represents the seven sacraments of the church.
Oh, amazing.
Going up the altar, you have 3 steps, which represents the Trinity. And so there's a lot of symbolism in here that a lot of people don't ordinarily get.
Which is why we're doing this whole show on
Sure.
getting this out there, because to come and visit, it's beautiful to look at, and you see these people, but without the detail that y'all know, bringing
Yeah.
to us, and us bringing it to you, it's lost.
And when you go look at the confessionals are magnificent. And you see it in keeping with the theme, but right above the middle door where the priest sits is the skeleton keys. And this is all from Matthew 16. You know, you're Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church. I'll give to you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you declare bound on earth, bound in heaven. And so the top, you have a medallion of the prodigal son, and on the other one, the good shepherd. And right over the keys, you have, right over the door, you have the keys from Peter. And then, you know, in the middle of the door, you have the Cairo, the symbol for Christ. We sit in the person of Christ in the sacrament of reconciliation to forgive sins. You can look at our beautiful windows made in 1888 by Myers of Munich. And, you know, you need to do a close-up with this camera just to see the fingernails and the hair follicle. And the details are magnificent, you know. And
One of the things that fascinated me concerning the windows, that when I walked in and you see them and they're striking and they look like they were done, you know, in the 19th century or earlier, but the names at the bottom for who either donated or made a pledge towards it, you recognize names that you hear in the newspaper or on TV every day. So they're amazingly done, because of course, being an artist, I had to get up there and inspect them. But you would think they so perfectly remade or refurbished to suit that.
They were. The same stained glass guy in Syracuse that I use, he took them, he re-leaded them, he reframed them, he came down and installed them, and did a magnificent job. Brennan Stained Glass Studios. And then on each side, the only thing made after 1891 is the statue of Pope John Paul II. And I was able to get his blood from Cardinal Gibiush.
That's amazing.
The Pope died in
treasure.
05. There were so many people going down to his grave. They moved his body upstairs in 2010. And in 2010, they realized his blood was still liquid.
Amazing.
You know, 5 years later. So Cardinal Gibiush gave me a relic of the blood. And we have Mother Teresa. And it's a replica of her tombstone in the oil and cotton she was given the last rites with.
Amazing.
You know, and you'll see the Blessed Mother. And the Blessed Mother was made in 1788. And when you look at it, you'll realize her features in the Christ, they didn't have plaster molds, okay? Her features in the Christ child features were made out of sawdust and egg whites. It's 240 years old. It's in perfect condition. It's just amazing. And if you go back to the sacristy, you're going to see all the old furniture that I, as a child, recognized from serving. Just the sacristy furniture is magnificent.
Wow. And all of this came from one particular church.
Yes.
The basics of this came from one particular church, because we talked about it in the previous show.
Right.
But we need to bring that to these viewers now. And it was in Syracuse, New York, correct? Holy Trinity?
Holy Trinity Catholic Church on Park Street.
And you were able to
then,
procure pretty much the
I
interior,
bought the contents.
the contents of it, minus the windows.
Long story,
And then you
couldn't
have
get
windows
the windows.
from another church. You
Right.
were able to procure, and that's from
Yeah.
a different state even, correct?
Yes. It was from Diocese of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And these pews came from Coaldale, Pennsylvania. I bought the pews out of two churches,
St. Cyril was one,
St. Cyril and was Methodius, whatever.
along those lines. St. Cyril struck my mind because my husband's name's Cyril and nobody ever knows that name. So when I hear about St. Cyril Church, immediately I'm
Yeah.
attracted to it. So I knew something had come from there. Those were
Those are the pews.
With the pews.
In Coaldale, Pennsylvania, looked like where they filmed The Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
that
very-
little type of town. I went up there and got those.
And folks, these pews still have the hat hooks. I
They
mean,
do.
they've been refurbished, but
They do.
they still have the hat hooks. And attached to some of the hat hooks are prayers for our country. Is a prayer for our country that y'all say every
St.
mass.
Michael and a prayer for our country after every mass.
Every mass. I know in the other show we covered the heritage of the Germans, but all of this woodwork, all of these artifacts that you purchased from the church
Correct.
were made by a German immigrant.
Ain't it
it was
Hackner?
It was a German parish at the time.
And he had some relation to the pastor. I don't know if he was his brother or what. And he went on to do many other churches. And a little fact, a guy in Baton Rouge, Harold Ballinger, his daughter's a doctor and lives somewhere up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And she came and she said, "This is just like our same guy." The same guy
wow.
did her church, yeah.
Okay.
So Ain't Hackner became very
Very famous. He had a-
well known for his woodwork.
His woodworking, and that's the artist that did what you're seeing here
Yes.
at this church. We know the church it's from, but just the artistry, since we
Sure.
were talking about the different artists. There are a couple of things to point out that fascinated me when I heard about it, and you wouldn't normally see it, and you wouldn't normally read about it, and that the two little crucifixes, candle holders
Yeah.
on the wall, are where, when this church was dedicated, where the church was anointed.
Yeah, what they do as part of the dedication of a church is they consecrate the walls. And so there are two there and there are two on the side walls. And where they anointed it, you place a candle.
Yeah, I was not
So
aware of that. And so
Yeah.
I noticed those and didn't know if they had any connection to the church itself, being that
Sure.
this is an incorporation of another church. In terms of your pulpit, again, and your communion rail, you kept those to keep that whole look together, which is amazing.
It's part of who we are. It's part of our history. And, it's all out of that church in Syracuse. And even when you go in the sacristy, you're going to see this beautiful artistry of cabinet making. And this was what no one was going to see. It was in the back room, but it's still very, very beautiful
That's
artwork.
it. Now, I was reading your sacristy light, it hangs on a chain.
The sanctuary light.
Thank you. I could not see in a moment
Sanctuary
again.
light, yes.
Sanctuary light.
Yes.
Is another piece from there?
Believe it or not, we had a smaller piece from there, and a parishioner whose sister was a nun somewhere in Michigan had given her that, and so we put it up in honor of her sister.
Oh, wow, in honor of her sister. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
who
Okay.
died at the age of 96.
Okay, because I had read about that as well.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things you're pointing out is, or we had talked about, was that the pews came from two different churches.
They did.
Therefore, they don't exactly match, and I never caught it. But then I'm so in awe of everything. Those are slightly different as well, and then you also, the stained glass are not all from the same church either.
A guy named Bubba Lynn from New Roads generously donated for beautiful stained glass windows. And we had those hanging in the old church and backlighted,
Okay.
and then when we went to get the new windows, we had to make sure they were made by the same artist, and they are Myers of Munich.
Oh, wow.
I just don't have the dates on those side windows.
Okay, and where are those? Those are,
They're on the right and the left transepts.
okay, great.
Yeah. So, they're just, it's very, very interesting that people come in and two things really strike me. One is they say, I just feel like God is in here. And then, thank you. That's what we want people to understand, because he is. He's in every tabernacle, regardless of what the church looked like. He's in every tabernacle. And for people to feel that presence. And then the other thing, and I had it happen last night, man says, my sister's coming in from California. Can we arrange to have a tour? I want to show her the church. And I think, that's nice. And people want to show their church to people. I came in here the other day just to get vestments, and Scott Buzzhart, and he and his wife had friends in from out of town, and they were giving them the tour and and everything. And those things are a great tribute to the testimony and the faith and the pride that the people have in our church.
And y'all do offer tours, do you?
We do.
Correct?
Yeah. So if anyone, their Ladies Altar Society, their Bible group, their office staff, you want to come, we'll provide tours. And there are even local places you want to have lunch, and we can contact a caterer for you. And I'm not going into business here, okay? That's not what I'm doing.
No, but it is
a number of
beautiful
people,
to come see.
So we want to make, a bus trip and a day tour out of it and all that stuff. And then they spend some time in the Adoration Chapel and come here, see the church, have a little lunch, and then head out.
And that's what we're hoping to give you, so by showcasing it for you,
Okay.
Having people come to see this. So
Well,
I thank you.
on behalf of the people of St. John the Baptist and Our Lady, we're very proud of what we've done. People give me credit, but there was a lot of wonderful generosity of so many people and talents that made this happen. So, I kind of get the credit, but that's oftentimes misplaced.
Well, thank you, Father Jeff.